Ready? Hi, my name is Riley, and I will be responding to Brady's argument. What he stated is that locally grown produce has greater benefits than organically grown produce. And the 4 points that he made were: one, that pesticides and fertilizers are still used on organic certified farms; two, locally grown produce is better for the environment; three, locally grown products can help alleviate food deserts in our urban areas; and four was locally grown food will have all the same benefits as organically certified food. And my response to his claims is that organically produced foods are just as good, and if not actually healthier than locally grown ones. According to an article posted on to time.com, it says a 2012 study conducted by Stanford's Center for Health Policy concluded that organic produce is not more nutrition dense than its generic counterparts. And so my response to his first claim, which was pesticides and fertilizers are still used on organic certified farms, he brought up that pesticides, which have already been banned to make them sound bad, basically while not specifying or going into detail that organic actually means, according to an article on the Cal Berkeley website, that these pesticides, if they are used, must be derived from natural sources, not synthetically manufactured. Also, these pesticides must be applied using equipment that has not been used to apply any synthetic material for the past 3 years, and the land cannot have been treated with synthetic materials. So basically what that means is that they were pointing out the arguments about pesticides and fertilizers while not getting specific as to the updates and regulations that have occurred since the evidence that was used. And once again, and then to also with that same point, the reasoning, he brought up arsenic as a reason to not purchase organic products, when he already stated that arsenic has not been in the organic farming industry for a long time, so kind of contradicted himself there. And then the secondary claim, locally grown produce is better for the environment. His evidence, he said locally grown food is better for the environment because it cuts down on the transportation on distance of the products. However, when I researched this, I found that the definition by law of locally grown is something within 400 miles of an area. So when I think of like a local post office or like my local grocery store, I don't think of something 400 miles away. So that's kind of counterintuitive to the actual claim. And then claim three was locally grown products can help alleviate food deserts in our urban areas. And what I said, because his reasoning for saying locally grown food products would alleviate the food deserts, and he didn't specify what a food desert was, and a food desert is an area where not many people can access the same foods as it's basically a rural, more urban area. And then he brought up an organization which helps underprivileged families afford healthily grown foods, but he failed to mention as to why locally grown applies to this and if it even matters. And he didn't state that if they access organic food, if it would help more than locally grown. He just said that it helps them access the food. And then for his fourth claim, which was locally grown food will have all the same benefits as organically certified food, I would like to make a counterclaim to that, because if there's more organically certified foods available in the country than locally grown, which there are, so if they have the same benefits, then why would someone go out of their way to purchase a locally grown product versus an organic product if they both have the exact same benefits, if not swayed more towards organic? And then that same argument is kind of contradictory, because his reason for having the same, for the two having the same benefits is that locally grown farmers grow organically, and this is a counterproductive statement as it provides zero reason to sway one way or the other. So they're essentially the same. So that is why organic products are the same, if not better, than locally grown products.
All right, well, once again, we're doubling up here. You know, we're going to hear a bunch of speeches next time that don't have anything to do with growing food or killing murderers or the Cowboys. You know, it's a little odd that we had so much doubling up here. It's well organized, Riley, so I thought you did a good job kind of following the structure. On your first point, or actually it's before your first point, you have this evidence that talks about how organically is actually superior. But the evidence that you quote, that Stanford study, basically says that it's not significantly different. So I'm not exactly sure how you reached that conclusion given the evidence that you had. That was very confusing. On your first point, your explanation about the issue was not very clear. I think the argument about arsenic was pretty clear, that says this is not really a relevant example that demonstrates the point, because this is, you know, it hadn't been used in for a long time, so you can't really make that point. That part I appreciated, but the other part, I'm not sure what that got you with the explanation that you provided. The issue about locally grown, I thought you had a good press here that locally grown is technically 400 miles away or more or less. That's a good point. The question then becomes, so if we got a lot of transportation and these are locally grown, is there any reason to believe that it's any more or less difficult to move from point A to point B, or we have to use it more often? And for example, is there no organically certified places within 400 miles of most of the places? I think that's a press that you want to put on the other side. I do like your post office argument, you know, that, you know, look, nobody thinks of 400 miles away as being local, so this definition is really kind of an artificial thing that somebody's come up with, and that there's a notion that there's some advantage from it seems to stem from, well, we'll just make this arbitrary number of 400 miles. The food deserts, I thought you kind of explain a little bit about what the definition is, that they can't access the particular foods. I do think you make a reasonable press here about why it is that organically grown foods won't meet this same kind of standard. And how it is that they don't fit on this point. That's a reasonable question to ask. There's not much argument developed there, just a reasonable question that's asked. And on your last point, you know, I think you're trying to make the same kind of argument that we heard earlier that says, well, you know, if there's no significant difference, then you don't really meet your own criteria on that point. And I'm not exactly sure that's a reasonable interpretation of the way the argument's being presented. I think you needed a little bit more evidence to document the advantages of certified organically grown foods, that sort of thing, and maybe some information, like especially some more information about the transportation issue, because I think that that's probably one of the places that they're going to try and generate most of their argument from. All right, thank you all very much.